What's going on? I'm Scrapezilla, and today I'm bringing the internet a quick little drift build for beginners. This is not going to be a 1200 horsepower twin turbo V8 thing. This is going to be a very, very simple, very low power, very easy to control drift car, catering a lot to controller players, but more specifically to those who are new on wheel. So once you get your S13, we're going to jump over to the upgrade shop. In this build, we're going to keep it SR20. We're not going to change the motor. I really like the feel of the 2-liter, especially with the turbo and drifting. It gives you a nice power band where you can really rev it out, but the thing isn't really banging limiter, especially even if you build it all the way up with the amount of grip the chassis actually does make, which isn't a lot, but it's really beautiful with the 2-liter. I really recommend it. A lot of fun. Great power response, kind of drives the way you'd expect it to, because, you know, it is the motor that came in the car. For this build, we're going to try throwing everything up to sport upgrades for the time being. We're not going to do any race upgrades. Actually, we might leave the turbo stock as well, just to give us a little bit of extra throttle response there. Intercooler I'd like to add, but it's going to adjust our weight a little bit. I'm going to try to keep as little weight in the front as possible. Try to get the balance back out to 50. Probably end up being around 52, 53 on this build, but we'll kind of see how it goes along. We're going to do the race brakes. Race brakes going to be super necessary for this build because we are going to be wanting to change our tuning for the brakes. Same thing with the suspension and the roll bars. Very, very important when drifting. Now, as far as weight, the Silvia S13 is a very light car already. So actually, we're just going to take the spare tire out of the rear and throw a lightweight battery in the front just to fix up our weight distribution there a little bit. 2,400 pounds is a very, very light car, especially for a drift car. And this thing's gonna absolutely send, man. I can't wait. I like to leave the stock clutch in it because it gives you a little bit more modulation when you're rocking a wheel. Otherwise, when you throw the race clutch in on the pedal set, it's just an on-off switch, man. It's almost impossible to actually modulate the throttle, or not the throttle, sorry, the clutch. Drift differential, it really doesn't matter which diff you go with here, as long as it's race diff or afterwards, so it is fully adjustable in the tuning. We're gonna leave the stock tire compound on this one. Like I said, it's a beginner drift car. We're going to keep it super slippery. 215s are going to go in the front, and slightly bigger 225s are going to go in the back. We're going to keep this thing, like I said, super simple, very street spec, 17s. Not going to go big baller 18s on this guy. I'm going to put some single piece, nice classic wheels on this. Take a look through, see what we get here. You know what, guys? I take forever when picking my wheels, so I might just come back after I've made a selection. I'll show you a couple of my favorites. I mean, the TEs, man, you can't really go wrong with TEs. Always going to look good on anything you throw them on, but I think it's a little too basic. We're going to go some little flashier than TEs. You know, I'm having a tough time here. This row of works always kind of throws me for a loop. I've been throwing these on, these new work wheels that they've added into this game, and I've just been gravitating to these. These wheels look great on wide body cars, especially Japanese ones. The A90 Super looks great on these. Wide body Evo 10, fantastic looking wheel. I think I'm going to go with the T7R 2-piece though. It's a little bit more realistic as far as the stance on it. And we're going to throw some spacers in the front. Now, with drifting, I like to throw the biggest spacers in the front, give you lots of stability in your steering. But the rear tends to snap back a little bit on full wide. I'm going to leave it a little skinnier. Little less stability in the back, keep it nice and slippery. The T7R is looking beautiful on this guy. We got all of our upgrades now. All we got left to do is take a look at the body kits. The S13 doesn't got a ton of kits in this game. It's got Origin Lab. It's got the Forza Aero, which is, we won't talk about the Forza Aero, but we got the Origin Lab. We're going to go with the drift kit. I know we said we're going to keep this thing nice and street, so we're not going to throw the big wing on it, but we are going to throw the Origin kit on it. Side-on hood, nah, we're gonna keep it street. Yeah, you know what? The clean street, smooth hood, stock wing, but with the drift kit, this is looking real stylish indeed. We got 2,400 pounds, 344 horsepower. We got the same amount of lateral Gs because obviously we didn't upgrade our tires a whole bunch, and we got right in the middle of B class. This is a beautiful place to be, middle of B class, learning how to drift, whether you're on controller or wheel. Excellent spot, middle of B class to the top of B class, somewhere in there. It's going to be a really nice, well-balanced car, something that's not going to have too much power, too much grip, and it's going to be very easy for you guys to control. Alright guys, so now we're in the tune menu. There's a couple basic things I like to do here. For all of my drift cars on wheel, the front tire pressure we're going to drop down around 25 is where I like to keep it. We're going to keep the rear at 30. We'll increase it if we're finding it's a little bit difficult to transition. We're going to keep the gear in stock for now with the race transmission because it seems to work out pretty well most of the time. We're going to add a little bit of camber to the rear. We're going to tow in the rear. This is going to make the car drift much more stably, and it's also going to allow the rear end to want to walk itself back to center. We're going to keep the tow out of it in the front completely for now, but if we're having problems getting it to flick out, we may add a little bit of tow out in the front just to help pull around the rear. Anti-roll bars. This I have a very specific setting for. I never stray from it anywhere at all. I rocked 20 and 10. That was a setting from the guys at UCXT, Ultra Clean Street Team, specifically Ant. Thanks for the videos, brother. But I've modified your anti-roll bar tune a little bit, and dang does the steering feel good. I recommend it. 22.5 in the front, 10 in the rear. It's great. You can even bump it up to 11 if it's getting a little bit sloppy for the rear. But yeah, it's absolutely fantastic steering feel on the G920. The springs, I copy my spring setting over from Assetto Corsa. I'm a big Assetto Corsa fanatic, and I love the VDC and the DC GP cars rather, and they run a 65 front, 60 rear spring rate among all of them. And that's just what I'm most used to. It makes the car super predictable. And it responds very slowly. So you're not gonna have a lot of big snappy transitions with this spring setting, but it will make things very easy, and your smooth tandems will be excellent with these soft spring settings. Alright, so on to damping, guys. This is a really big one for me, and honestly, a lot of time in the drift community, you'll see a lot of guys run the same sort of setup where it's staggered from the top to the bottom. Most specifically, the bump stiffness, though. Having a low bump stiffness in the rear in this game for running your smaller tracks like Casabella is going to help a huge amount for rolling over curbs. It's going to keep the car nice and stable and not let it get unsettled when it hits these small little obstacles. Now, brake balance. This is a big one, especially in the realm of tandems, but it's definitely going to help you in all forms of drifting to move your brake balance towards the front. Now, maybe not everybody, but many people within the Forza community know that this setting is flipped around reverse. What you should be reading here is only on the right, the rear, and how much braking force is applying to the rear. So 22% only of the braking force is going to go to the rear here. This is going to give me a huge amount of angle control using my left foot braking in a slide. Meaning that if I press the brake, applying more to the front wheels in slide, it's going to pull that front end back behind the rear wheels, giving me more angle. You don't want to do this too much though, because you also want to be able to use your braking force to slow you down and adjust speed. So for me, being on wheel, I have incredible braking modulations with my foot and this massive pedal as opposed to, someone's left finger on a controller. So I put mine down to 50. It's very common on controller for guys to run as low as 20% braking force for tandem. Yeah, so we're all done with the tune now. All we gotta do left is just make this thing a little bit more pretty. I do absolutely love the two-tone on these cars. The darker bottom is definitely cool, but the kit kind of gets rid of it. So I'm gonna throw some stickers on. I'll throw you on a time lapse, and I'll show you guys the final product when we get out to test.